You're looking to take your content to the next level. Give your video that professional look. Maybe you want the lovely blurred background look that you see others using. If you do, and if you want to take your videos up a level, you're gonna need the right lens. And you probably know this. Maybe you've even researched which lens to buy, but you've found it all very confusing. You really don't know which lens is going to be the best to film yourself and to make your content really pop. All these different numbers and fancy jargon. What does it all mean? Does it matter? What should you be looking for in that perfect lens to film yourself? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to know about getting the right lens to make your content look really good. I'm Andrew Sweeney, and I'm all about making it super easy and non-technical for content and course creators to make great content. So let's get to it. So you've got your camera, but it's not giving you the results that you want. You know you need the right lens, but you're not sure which one to buy. First thing, when it comes to lenses, not all lenses fit all cameras. A Sony lens, for example, well, that won't fit on a Canon camera. Now, you can buy adapters like this and convert a Sony lens to a Canon lens or vice versa. But we're not going to get into this in a beginner's video. And just because you've got, say, a Canon camera doesn't mean that all Canon lenses will fit either. Basically, it comes down to two things: the type of mount and the type of sensor that your camera has. So, the first thing that you've got to do, you've got to find out what kind of mount your camera has and the type of sensor. So, I'll hop over to Google and type in, for example, what mount is the Canon EOS 2000D? And then click on this listing here for the Canon website. Now, if I scroll down, here it tells me that it's an EF/EFS, which means it'll take any of the EF or EFS lenses. And you can do the same search for any make of camera. So the first thing to understand is what mount your camera has. Now, Amazon also has a selection feature where you can check if a lens is going to fit your camera. All you've got to do is find the lens you want and then, from the box here, select the brand of camera. Then, in the box here, put in the model number and it will tell you if that lens will fit. But basically, the three most common types of cameras used by content creators are Sony, Panasonic and Canon. So, here are the basic when it comes down to these makes. In fact, let me know in the comments which camera you use. Anyway, Sony. Now, Sony make cameras with two types of sensors. They make a full frame sensor, which is typically in their high-end professional models. And they also make a crop sensor camera, like in the A6600 and the A6400, etc. You can fit a Sony lens made for a full frame camera onto a crop sensor camera. That will work. Now, with Sony, you can also use a lens made for a crop sensor and put it on a full frame camera. That'll also work. But you're going to get vignetting, which isn't ideal on Panasonic cameras. Now, they use a mount that's called a micro 4/3. So any lens by any manufacturer that's got a micro 4/3 mount, it's going to work on a Panasonic. And lastly, Canon. Now, like Sony, Canon make a full frame camera like the Canon 5D, and also cameras with a crop sensor like the 2000D. Canon call these crop sensor cameras APS-C. Now, a Canon lens for a full frame camera, which is a EF mount, will fit on a crop sensor camera. But not all lenses made for the crop sensor cameras, which is the EFS, will fit on a full frame Canon camera. Right, so we've got the mount out of the way. So let's now take a look at what all these numbers mean and what you should be looking for if you want to make talking head videos like this. The first number before the mm, which stands for millimeters by the way, that's the focal length of the lens. Basically, all this means is the bigger the number, the more zoomed in the lens is. A 60mm lens is going to show more background. It's a wide-angle lens, whereas say a 30mm lens is going to give more of a punched-in shot. For direct-to-camera video like this, you're likely going to want something between 40mm, which is really wide, to say 35mm, which is more zoomed in. If your camera's quite close, you're going to be wanting 14 or 16 or maybe even 20mm. If the camera's further away, you're going to be wanting, say, 30 to, say, 35mm. Now, when it comes to lenses, you can buy either a prime lens that's fixed, like this, Or you can buy a zoom lens like this, and that allows you to adjust how zoomed in it is. So you're likely thinking, hang on, well, why not just buy a zoom lens and have done with it? Well, zoom lenses are a lot more expensive. So if you get away with a fixed lens, you're going to save yourself quite a bit of money. I mean, it's that simple. Now, the next number that you want to look at is the size of the aperture. Aperture is just a fancy name for how big the hole is that lets the light into your camera. Now, on this lens, you can see the 1:1.4. Just ignore the first one. The 1.4 means this lens has an aperture of 1.4. A 1.4 lens lets in more light than, say, a 2.8 or a 3.5, and that's why lenses with an aperture of, say, 1.4 are more expensive. Basically, the more light a lens lets in, the more expensive it gets. If you want to get that blurred background look, you need to be looking at a lens that has an aperture of, say, 1.4, 1.8 or 2.8. Basically, the lower the number, the more you can blur the background. Now, some lenses, cheaper zoom lenses, have two numbers. If you look at this one, it says 3.5 to 5.6. Now, this means that when it's zoomed out, the maximum aperture is going to be 3.5. But when it's zoomed in, it's going to be 5.6. If you wanted the blurred background look, this lens is not going to be the ideal choice. Now, some lenses have image stabilization, but if you're shooting like this direct to camera, you've likely got your camera mounted on a tripod or something. So paying extra for a lens with image stabilization, it's not really going to be worth it. Now, the last thing that you want to check, and now listen up because this will save you some money. This number, the number with this little symbol next to it, this tells you what the thread size is. On this lens, it's 67mm. The reason why this is important is because when you've bought a lens with your hard-earned cash, and let me tell you, quality lenses aren't cheap, the last thing that you want to do is damage it. They're just so easy to scratch. The first thing I do when I get a new lens is buy a cheap UV filter. Think of this as like a screen protector for your lens. You just screw this on and it stops dust, or if you catch the lens on something, you only have to replace a $10 filter and not a new lens. Makes total sense. Well, that's all you need to know to buy the right lens. Now, if you found this lesson useful, hit the like button below. I hope this helped. So until next time, bye for now.